Again today, extending past 120 bucks by another 2.5%. Let's talk it. Let's trade it. Let's look at Micron too. Semiconductors are subject here for Inside Out. Paul McCarthy joins us, president of Kisco Capital, and Tom with me in studio looking at options, ready to trade. Welcome back, Paul. Let's talk some Micron first here for earnings, since that's kind of the imminent news flow. What are you looking for, and is this a key player?
Yeah, I think this is kind of a key event, especially for a slow week in terms of news. I think everyone's thinking about NVIDIA, and which we hear from in November. And if you know that Micron does do business with NVIDIA with their new chip, their M3 chip coming out, and that's going to be part of NVIDIA's H200 chip that'll come out, I believe, next year. So the two are tied in that regard. Excuse me. And I don't know if we hear anything from Micron today on that product. They've been producing that since about February. So it's definitely in the pipeline, and it's coming. So they only project out about 1 quarter. So we'll see if they actually hint around some of the numbers today as to whether they're going to be capturing more margin. And margin has really been the story for Micron this year, as they've had a big swing in revenues. Their revenues have gone from in 22, 30 billion down to 15 billion about a year ago. They're running about a $21 billion run rate now. They had negative margins earlier this year. Last quarter, they posted about a 12% gross margin. So that was, let's say 3/4 of improvement. So we'll look to see if they actually can, show some improvement and kind of put the chapter in their last product cycle behind them. But if they've been, improving the last 3 quarters, these product cycles are like 8 to 10 quarters. So they're kind of moving into the middle innings. And so I think the market is really wants to see that they're just stemming the flow, the bleeding, so to speak, of their cash burn, and that maybe there'll be a hint of the new products for next year. But we may have to wait until NVIDIA's report in November until we get a better flow through on it. So it's kind of a tale of looking in the rearview mirror and making sure that they're sort of like putting the last product behind us and then seeing if we get some projections. But for the most part, I think that they're probably on an improvement cycle. There's probably a lot of people looking at the stock that's been got cut in half over the last few months. So it could be an attractive entry point because it looks as though the selling is starting to slow down on this one. So how it reacts afterwards and sort of the guidance going forward, I think will be closely watched for the semiconductor sector. So it turns out I think it's going to be a pretty key report for a lot of people.
It's a good assessment of going forward, what's going to matter in the product line, also the length of the cycle when they get these new products out, really important. I think that's why you've had so much volatility here, because when it is that kind of long extended cycle, if it starts later than expected, there's a good bit of pricing that has to happen, repricing that has to happen. Your point about it getting shaved down in half. Tom, this was at 157. I mean, it's, been the craziest ride for a 15% move on the year. This has been the most extreme ride to underperform the market.
40% off of those highs that we saw at the end of June. So, the bar's actually low going into this report. But if you've seen the analyst community come out, they've lowered price targets on this repeatedly over the last couple of weeks. Citigroup said 80% of the analysts have turned more bearish on the name.
Get that bar down.
And, memory chips, historically, always really cyclical, right? And they're much more volatile than normal chip makers. So I looked at a strategy that takes advantage of vol dispersion. If you think this stock's going to maybe rebound because the bar is low, I think it's all going to be about guidance moving forward for this company on this report. I looked at a call diagonal to the upside here where I'm going to go out to the October monthly cycle. So 23 days to expiration. I'm going to buy the at-the-money call, the 95 strike call. And the options are market's pricing about an 8-9% move in the stock. So that's where I went with my short call in the September 27th weekly series, selling the 103 strike call. So you're buying the October 95 call, selling the September 27th, 103 call, $8 wide, bullish call diagonal. You're paying roughly about a $4.30 debit for it, right? So it's less or nearly half the width of this call diagonal. It takes your break even to about 97. That's just over 2% above the current share price, where you want this stock to grind up maybe that one standard deviation to the upside. On this one, you're buying about a 67% implied volatility in October on that 95 call that you're buying, and then selling about 150% implied volatility on aggregate in that September 27th, 103 strike call. So this might be the way to play it if you're more bullish on this name. If you're more bearish, you can do a put diagonal to the downside. So this is just an example that reflects that, hey, if you think this stock's going to move up.
This is the bottom out trade. It's bottoming out.
Right, exactly. Right. And you're trying to buy this call diagonal at a lower price entry point, which is your risk. The debit you pay is your risk on this one because of that vol dispersion.
Okay, all right, nice. Like the trade. Way to get some longer-term exposure to Micron post-earnings. Let's hit some NVIDIA real quick, though. Paul, give me a quick thought here. Yesterday, it seemed like the market was celebrating Jensen Huang ending his share sales. Does that matter?
Man, psychologically, maybe. I think the stock has been such a beast that it's really just consolidating right here within a range, and I think you'll probably see it, move higher into next year. They have a gross margin on the other end of the spectrum than Micron. Their gross margin is like 75, 76%. It's really just a question of how much are they going to share with the Microns of the world, and maybe we'll get a little look-see on that. With the guidance, but I said that's sort of a maybe kind of proposition. But I don't see the AI trade, slowing down. I think we'll get, Micron will kind of confirm that today, and that Micron really does have a product which is differentiated. It's not a commodity product, and I think they'll probably drag, companies up with them. But you're seeing, things like 3 Mile Island get bought, utilities are going higher. It's all anticipation that this is coming down the pike. So I don't think that this is going to stop anytime soon. So I think it's good that the stock is consolidating. It gives it time to sort of work off overbought conditions and move higher.
All right, well said. Like the point about the utility side of it too, as we were talking that earlier. You don't buy 20 years of nuclear power if you're not confident there's a big trend coming. Thanks, Paul. Good thoughts.
Thank you.
Tom White, let's trade it. Give me the NVIDIA trade real quick.
He mentioned if he thinks it's going to rally back to